Rocky may have hung up his gloves, Rambo may have put away his hunting knife, but Sylvester Stallone himself is punching as hard as ever at the age of 77. With a Netflix documentary about his life coming next month, both Tulsa King and the family Stallone becoming huge hits on Paramount Plus, and him returning to the role of Barney Ross once more to kick ass alongside his fellow action movie icons, as well as 50 Cent and Megan Fox, I guess, in Expendables 4, aka Expendables. And while this new entry may have the worst reviews and opening weekend of the series, at least it'll be far from the first underwhelming sequel in Stallone's 50-year career, such as in 1983 when he stepped behind the camera of the sequel that cured America of its Saturday Night Fever. John Travolta back as Tony Manero in Staying Alive. 1 year after Rocky Balboa first went the distance, there was another smash hit underdog tale named Saturday Night Fever, the gritty story of a 19-year-old Brooklyn nobody who feels like a somebody when he hits the floor of his local disco. With John Travolta breaking out from TV to film with this Oscar-nominated performance, and the Bee Gees becoming superstars from the movie's million-selling soundtrack. So producer Robert Stigwood and Paramount Pictures would greenlight a sequel after their Travolta-less sequel to Grease had flopped at the box office, with Travolta back as Tony to transition professionally from disco dancer to Broadway star, and the Italian Stallion enlisted to rewrite and direct the follow-up after Travolta was blown away by a screening of Rocky III.
Rocky Balboa and Tony Manero, the two dumbest people in the history of cinema, now together for the first time to form the dumbest, worst film of all time. Okay.
Well, you said it, Sly, not us. Because even though Staying Alive was one of 1983's highest-grossing movies at the box office that summer, the reception from disappointed audiences and critics was a blow for both Stallone and Travolta, as it currently stands as the oldest film to have a confirmed 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and was named by Entertainment Weekly in 2007 to be the worst sequel ever made. So now that 40 years have passed and Stallone has never directed another movie without him in it since, let's find out why Staying Alive was not alright or okay and had us looking the other way. In fact, I think you JoBlo subscribers out there would agree that John Travolta would have been a far better fit for this fourth Expendables than, say, Andy Garcia. Sure, the movie would still be terrible, but when has that ever stopped John Travolta or Sylvester Stallone? I'm sure bringing the both of them in for Expendables in another 9 years will do way better at the box office, especially if they finally use that theme song from the first movie's trailer.
You're welcome!
Every one of us is expendable!
Yabba dabba do Expendables! Whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, make sure you're staying alive after sobering up from the awfully good drinking game. Take a shot or drink every time you hear another song off the film's soundtrack, beginning with the only hit song for a certain little brother of our movie's director.
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
Yes, it's Frank Stallone, in one of the many musical cameos he's made in Sly's filmography, with the genuinely catchy and deliciously 80s opening theme, Far From Over. The credits roll as Tony dances on stage to swat away invisible bees, while partaking in an on-stage audition for a stage director played by Stallone's future Rambo 3 co-star, Kurtwood Smith, looking as disappointed as we all were to hear he wrote one of those letters for Danny Masterson.
Dumbass!
But Clarence Boddicker yells, "Bitches leave," to the dancers he dismisses off the stage, and Tony walks out dejected, off to his day job at Fatima's Danceland as a dance instructor.
Fatima.
Why are you late? We've got people here.
Your boobs are huge. I mean, I want to squeeze them.
Alongside his fellow aspiring Broadway dancer and new girlfriend, Jackie Cole, played by Flashdance and Dirty Dancing's Cynthia Rhodes.
Typical.
What do you mean?
I turn them down.
Way to go, Mr. Travolta. You were right to turn down that role in Grease, too. It's not like that sequel's gonna go on to have a way bigger cult audience than Staying Alive will. These days, Tony's moved from the dumpy house he shared with his family in Brooklyn to the dumpy hotel room he has in his new turf of Manhattan.
Any messages? Any messages?
Which he supports with an additional night job as a waiter down at a nightclub where he hopes not to get recognized by Marge Simpson.
Hey, the bartender even looks like John Travolta.
Yeah.
looks like.
Where all the dancers are dancing to an entirely different beat from one another, and the horny female clientele are eager to order that sausage sandwich he's got tucked inside his pants.
I love to watch her walk.
Can't make it.
Why not?
I don't have time for meaningful relationships right now.
Well, let me tell you something. Guys like you aren't relationships.
Your exercise.
But Tony's attempts to search for a talent agent in the streets of New York, even as they're all seemingly too busy with reading the script to this very movie, are not that dissimilar from Sylvester Stallone's own experiences as a struggling actor pre-Rocky, which he's described in decades of talk show interviews.
I went through all the agencies, then I started getting rejected by all the secretaries, and eventually I worked at a janitor and said, no, nothing.
I'm very good at some sports, like weightlifting and push-ups.
With Stallone even making a Hitchcockian cameo as himself bumping into Tony on the streets. An especially clever nod to the first movie, where Tony had a Rocky poster prominently placed on his wall. Thank God there were no cell phones for Sly to beat Tony's ass for trying to get a selfie.
I love John Conan the Barbarian.
But Tony still has time to support his girlfriend's more successful career as a Broadway dancer, watching her lay a show from backstage when his eyes end up drifting towards the show's lead dancer, Laura, played by future soap star Finola Hughes, who makes Tony's dumb, vacant eyes glaze over with lust.
There, you pretty lady. Me want love pretty dance lady, even though me already love other pretty dance lady. Pretty lady.
To be fair, my eyes would drift off during this show as well. What kind of Broadway musical has no songs or dialogue or story to connect any of these dance numbers? This audience could have just stayed home and watched this type of shit on solid gold and saved themselves a couple $100. Does Stallone think that all those bad production numbers he saw at the Oscars during the 70s are how all stage productions are supposed to look?
Yes!
No, don't you dare applaud this. Especially this orchestra over here that apparently didn't do anything when all the music we just heard of that show was clearly done on synthesizers and guitars. What, were they just being paid to sit down the entire show? This leads to the first of many times that Tony screws over his actual girlfriend to go chasing after her British co-star.
I used to be pretty incredible myself when I lived in Brooklyn.
What happened?
I moved to Manhattan.
There, you pretty lady.
A wealthy girl who heads out of the theater in a swanky limousine and does not even bother to remember Tony's name.
Well, Jimmy, you see the thing?
Tony.
Hello, Jimmy.
It's Tony. Did you hear the way she talks? It's so intelligent-like. I love it.
An accent doesn't make someone intelligent. If it did, you'd be Einstein.
Little did Jackie know that Tony would end up taking her advice literally and would nearly land the role of Albert Einstein in Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Things will soon grow awkward as Tony and Jackie both audition for the next show that Laura's already been cast in, for a General Zod lookalike stage director named Jesse, played by another actor from a better 80s dance movie, Steve Inwood.
And kids, you gotta hear it again. It's whoever's right for the show.
Wait, why the hell are you reminding them of what the very purpose of an audition is? It's not like any of these actors came here to find out who is the worst for the show.
Hi, I'm Joy.
I'm Happiness.
Yes, Tony, you indeed do have a very happy penis there. Travolta's bulging camel toe in this movie looks like Danny DeVito stuck inside of a leather couch. Afterwards, Tony heads out with Laura for a romantic walk through Central Park to the tune of one of the Bee Gees' 5 new original songs for the sequel. And these overlong montages will have you wishing this scene would end like Arnold's own romantic stroll through Central Park by having Tony fight off an escaped zoo bear. Not a guy in a bear suit, but an actual bear that Stallone brought to set after Arnold gave it to him for Christmas. Mr. Stallone, please yell cut and come fight this bear off of me.
It doesn't over till it's over.
It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing.
By now, anything that Tony learned from the last movie about treating women like people instead of playthings has been completely forgotten now that he's sleeping with another woman he barely knows behind the back of his nothing but supportive girlfriend. Even as he and these two women are about to get cast together in a Broadway show when he finally gets the job over the phone in his hotel's lobby.
I got it? You kidding me?
That boy's crazy.
Way to go, Monero!
Yeah, way to go, Mario!
Woohoo!
Tony heads over to tell girlfriend number 1 about the big news, while Jackie performs on stage at a bar with her musical partner,
You guessed it.
Frank Stallone, whose other original songs for this soundtrack are far from being as good as Far From Over. But after promising his girlfriend to meet her outside the bar after her show, he ends up ditching her so he can go bang Laura again, only to find her preoccupied with another man who appears to have stolen Pee Wee Herman's bow tie.
Francis.
And then confronts her dramatically over it after their first rehearsal together.
I wait all night for you and you bring some guy home with you.
Are you talking to me? We met, I liked you, we made it. What do you think it was? True love. Everybody uses everybody, don't they?
You know, it's kind of hard for your movie's lead to take the moral high ground when this movie has him ditching his girlfriend and apologizing to her afterwards all the damn time.
I know I got terrible manners, but the people I grew up with had terrible manners.
Only to have him immediately ditch her again to chase back after her co-star.
Look, we didn't have a fight, Tony, you did. And I'd like to see you again.
I don't know.
Consider yourself officially invited.
I do agree with this extra who got away with flipping off the camera without Stallone finding out and beating his ass. Tony Manero can indeed go fuck himself, even if he is once again breaking out the iconic white polyester suit he wore back in his disco days that made the first film the subject of many pop culture parodies. Now with an 80s makeover that makes Tony look more like negative Luke Skywalker, as well as Sonny Crockett from Miami Vice when he stands next to this black extra who looks just like Tubbs. Yet Tony is shocked to find Laura has yet again walked in with their director Jesse at her arm.
Didn't you learn anything from the other day?
I didn't even learn anything. What are we in school?
I legitimately think Tony may have short-term memory loss.
Do you think you can play with people anytime you want?
I invited you here tonight because in a way I thought you were interesting.
Well, I disagree, because the Tony Manero of Saturday Night Fever actually was interesting. That movie made no bones about his flaws as a person, which represented the grim mood of 1970s America. He throws out racist and homophobic slurs without shame, he and his buddies get into violent fights with rival street gangs, and he treats his friends and family like such shit that one of his buddies gets so fed up with it as to take his life jumping off a bridge. But since the first movie was given a PG-rated version to bring in more audiences at the height of the disco craze, Staying Alive sticks with that PG rating, and Stallone's rewrite of the more pessimistic script from original screenwriter Norman Wexler loses all the edge that made the first film special, with all dramatic tension delivered now through our 3 leads dramatically looking at each other during rehearsals, or overlong musical numbers from Tony's jilted girlfriend, which feel more appropriate for a Family Ties episode.
What can I say to you?
You don't have to say anything.
Say what?
I'll be your friend, but no more than that.
Why in the hell does she even bother still being friends with this man by now? This man is literally looking at other women's asses during her musical performances, even as the sheer beauty that is Frank Stallone is staring him literally right in the face. The problem with trying to force this into the same story structure of a Rocky sequel is that Rocky Balboa was a nice guy who fought to support his loving family even after suffering incredible loss, while Tony Manero is only dancing to support himself and still treats those who love him like shit. And now he's brokenheartedly walking all the way back home to Brooklyn on Christmas morning to the arms of the only other actor to return here from the first movie, Julie Bavasso as Tony's suffering ma, Flo, who offers Tony a slice of pie as well as some much-needed wisdom.
The way I treated everybody, I was very hard on you. It's not me, all right? That wasn't me.
This attitude, that's what got you out of this damn neighborhood. You don't need to apologize, because you must have been doing something right.
Yes, it may be weird that we're not acknowledging where the rest of Tony's family went, with Stallone deleting cameos from both Tony's stern father, Frank Sr., and his old romantic flame, Annette. But this is a genuinely nice scene that this sequel could have used more of, along with the quite good songs from the Bee Gees that may not be as catchy as their songs from last time, but do way more work at telling Tony's story of emotional maturity than the film itself, which now goes back to showing Tony's dance rehearsals set to a cheesy new wave tune that has the same 3 words repeated over and over.
Fire me.
Lay back. Burn!
Well, Travolta did indeed feel the burn with the 5-month workout routine that Stallone put him on for this role.
He dances for 3 hours a day. He lifts weights for 2 hours, 6 days a week. Plus, he's under tremendous mega vitamin therapy.
It's that mega vitamin therapy which surely convinces Jackie to give Tony another chance, as they dance together at a personal rehearsal right after he has yet another jealous hissy fit over her walking into the studio with,
You guessed it,
Frank Stallone.
Everything is fine. She's in good hands.
Hey, what are you, Allstate, pal?
Now would be a good time to have accident forgiveness.
In fact, Frank sings with Cynthia Rhodes on the romantic duet that underscores Tony and Jackie's sexy slow-mo rehearsal. No, stop that. Just because it has the same title as the Rick Astley song does not make this count as a Rickroll. Now that Tony has tearfully atoned for his wicked ways to Jackie, he finally has the confidence to ask his director if he can take over the show's lead role from Laura's blonde co-star, Mark, played by a guy with no Wikipedia page, in a battle of the bulges. Why bother casting either of these two clowns in this part when you've got none other than the late, great Patrick Swayze as one of these background dancers? Right before Swayze would go from professional dancing to action and musical movie stardom. He would have certainly been a far better choice for this new Expendables movie instead of 50 Cent. Unfortunately, Tony's old romantic tensions with Laura get in the way of nailing their routine.
This is a dance or a bloody circus!
And Jesse must give his new star an inspirational speech in true Stallone movie fashion.
What you have is anger, and that's what I need to make this show work. Stop worrying about trying to change other people, and start worrying about changing yourself.
That's how winning is done.
Everybody uses everybody, don't they?
Go to hell, Monero.
Well, how fitting that he just told Tony to go to hell, because I have not yet told you folks about the show that he and his girlfriends have been rehearsing for the past few months by the name of
Satan's Alley.
For those who forgot, the show's called Satan's Alley. It's a journey through hell that ends with an ascent to heaven.
Which Stallone based loosely on Dante Alighieri's epic 14th century poem about his journey through hell, the Inferno.
My brother had this book like of Dante, these paintings. I go, what's this have to do with like Tony Manero? All right, now you gotta get the concept.
In the long history of fake musicals that have been written for TV shows or movies, Satan's Alley might be one of the most unintentionally hilarious. As the show opens with Tony in a skimpy loincloth, crucified on a piece of broken exercise equipment, then walking onto a foggy stage where he's attacked by dance zombies, and then proceeding to recreate John Travolta's conversion to the Church of Scientology through dance, to what sounds like the rejected theme song from Scarface. Yes, the actor, writer, and director behind some of the most masculine and explosive movies in film history is now giving us the most clear-coded thing that his fan base of action-loving bros has ever seen. In fact, the man who designed the spectacular costumes for this finale, Bob Mackie, is himself a gay icon for all the iconic outfits he's designed in TV and film. And judging from some of these dancers being dressed up like Bane and Catwoman, I suspect that Mr. Mackie is also a closeted DC fan. But Tony nearly bungles the first act when he leans in at the end to give Laura a smooch, and she gives him a scratch across the face.
You bastard!
Look, even if I wasn't reviewing this movie the same year that a Spanish soccer chief got in trouble for pulling this same shit on a player at the Women's World Cup, I would still say that this shit's way out of line. Especially since that last movie had Tony attempting to rape a woman.
Why'd you have to kiss her?
That didn't mean nothing.
And still Jackie forgives this asshole like nothing ever happened? Are we sure these headbands they're wearing aren't cutting off the blood from their brains? The cast keeps dancing its ass off in another slow-mo montage that Stallone mistakenly thought looked amazing while high off of cocaine and mega vitamin powder, but instead looks like the music video shoot for John Travolta's inferior ripoff of Olivia Newton-John's Physical, titled Let's Do Exercise. Well, since Stallone does drop a clever Rocky reference in this dialogue from a stage manager, I am now wishing that Burgess Meredith was playing this director role instead so he could be yelling at Tony from backstage.
Come on, you bum! You've got her on the ropes! You're gonna eat Sondheim, and you're gonna crap fussy, 'cause Jesse loves you!
Then right before the final act, Laura gets into Tony's head with 4 simple words.
You don't have it.
Which is the PG-rated way of diagnosing Tony with a case of limp dick. But just as the final act has Tony's gay Tarzan character able to overcome the temptations of Laura as the devil and fights off the whips of her henchmen dressed up like the Pulp Fiction Gimp, so is Tony himself able to show up this snooty biatch by helicoptering her body around the stage, then chucking her across it without any consideration as to whether she'll be seriously injured, and end up closing this show faster than you can say Battlefield Earth, the musical.
Jesus, he's good.
But will Laura end up trusting Tony to make this final jump into his arms?
Come on! I can't! Reach up and grab him! Use your other hand! Reach up! Yeah. Reach up now!
Jump!
Jump! Damn it! Jump! Come on!
She jumps into the air and into the arms of Tony to end this journey through musical hell on a note of bad movie heaven. Even Tony's mother is emotionally overcome to know her advice to her son not only enabled him to become a Broadway superstar, but also to sexually and physically assault a woman on stage without any consequences. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen? But while the cast and crew celebrate backstage, even though this show will likely end up closing on Broadway even faster than that Rocky musical did, Tony walks off to plant one last kiss of thanks onto Jackie before ending this movie the only way that it could have ended.
You know what I want to do? What? You know what I want to do?
What?
Strut.
Pretty man.
Yes, the Bee Gees opening theme from Saturday Night Fever now serves as our closing theme to the sequel of the same name, ending the saga of Tony Manero on a triumphant note as he struts on the streets of his beloved New York City, without acknowledging that he's just ditched his girlfriend behind yet again over at the theater, and that Laura will probably grow so tired of being thrown across the stage by her dumbass ex-boyfriend for 6 nights a week that she'll end up filing sexual assault charges against Tony, he'll end up getting fired and forced to move back home as a Brooklyn nobody once more, and a certain background dancer by the name of Pat Swayze will be upgraded to the lead role and rocket his way to stardom.
Typical.
Travolta and Stallone got along so well on Staying Alive that Travolta would be written into James Cameron's original draft for Rambo 2 as John Rambo's army buddy. And the two men even concocted an idea for them to star in The Godfather Part 3. While neither idea came to fruition, Staying Alive's cultural relevance after nearly half a decade remains surprisingly high, with its recent 4K release from the fine folks over at Kino Lorber, and Barbie director Greta Gerwig, a huge Stallone fan herself, citing the film as a personal favorite in an Uproxx interview this year, with Ken's much mean fur coat from Barbie being directly inspired by the fur coat fashion seen in Staying Alive on both Stallone and one of the dancers. And not only did Quentin Tarantino praise Stallone's directing career in his recent excellent essay collection Cinema Speculation, but he's reportedly set to reunite with John Travolta once again for a role in Tarantino's reportedly final feature film, The Movie Critic. So while Staying Alive does indeed lack the realistic grit and heavy subject matter of John Badham's 70s original, this 80s sequel is still an entertainingly bad summation of how big Stallone and Travolta's inflated egos were back at the peak of their stardom, with some impressive dancing and catchy songs that serve as much of a time capsule of where pop culture was in America as its predecessor was. For Stallone fans and bad movie fans alike, Staying Alive is far from being the worst sequel ever made in a world where Rise of Skywalker and Expendables 4 now exist, but certainly serves as an entertaining example of how to cheapen a seminal work of 1970s cinema. I think Stallone would have been better off waiting for another decade and instead having both John Travolta and Julie Bavasso cast in place of him and Estelle Getty for Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
What do you mean, Mom? You didn't clean your right. I mean, you took all the bluing off it.
Oh man, I
I shot Marvin in the face.
On the enjoyableness continuum scale from Bull to Bruce, staying alive will make you grateful that at least Stallone didn't think to title it Sat 2 or Day Night Fever, and should be dancing its way to a 6 out of 10. And somehow I would rather rewatch this Travolta sequel over Be Cool any day of the week. I'm Jesse Sheet for JoBlo.com, and thanks again for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the JoBlo Originals channel. Tell all your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all our latest videos. We are an independent company that appreciates all of your support. And speaking of unnecessary sequels to classic 70s movies, I hear there's a new Exorcist sequel coming out that I'll have to time my next review into, just in time for the scariest time of the year, the release of Taylor Swift's concert tour movie.
Stop it!
Staying alive, oh, staying alive, hey, staying alive, oh,
Ooh, I like that.
Great walk.